Amara Dyke grew up in a world where softness was not a luxury but the default setting of her entire existence, a life so polished and cushioned that even the word struggle felt like a rumor from faraway places she would never visit. From the moment her eyes opened each morning, comfort wrapped around her like a second skin, the kind that made you forget the world owed you nothing. Her family home was massive, the kind of house that made passers-by slow down to stare, a building with glossy walls, wide verandas, and a gate that swung open with the confidence of a place that had never known lack. Inside, everything smelled of money and structure. Everything functioned smoothly. Everything obeyed routine. Amara never lifted a finger for anything. She didn't know how to wash a sock, didn't know how to sweep even a corner of the floor, didn't know how to make her bed because her bed always looked new every morning, crisp and neat as if elves came to work at dawn. If she wanted water, she shouted. If her breakfast was late, she muttered complaints loud enough for the whole house to hear. If her uniform looked slightly wrinkled, she rolled her eyes dramatically. She was still in secondary school, yet she behaved like a tiny queen who believed the world existed to decorate her comfort. Even adults tiptoed around her moods. At school, she carried the same entitlement like a handbag. She attended a prestigious private school, the type of place where a single term's fee could buy someone a small plot of land. The classrooms were beautiful, the teachers well-trained, discipline supposedly strict, yet somehow those rules always seemed optional for her. She came late almost every day and walked past teachers like they were decorations on the wall. When questioned, she smirked. When punished, her parents were cold, and mysteriously the punishment vanished as though it had never existed. She caught on quickly. If she rolled her eyes, punishment dissolved. If she complained, teachers hesitated. If she smiled sweetly, everything became negotiable. So she misbehaved freely, slept in class, scrolled her phone during lessons, laughed loudly during serious moments, and when her grades dropped, she simply shrugged. Why read when your life already feels like a fast-lane ticket to wherever you want? Her classmates whispered about her. Some admired her boldness, others avoided her entirely. But Amara lived inside a bubble, so thick that even the loudest whisper never touched her. Back home, Mr. and Mrs. Dyke suffered silently. The public saw them as a picture-perfect couple, respected in church, admired in society, known for generosity and good character. Yet behind closed doors, they watched their daughter transform into someone unrecognizable. Mrs. Dyke remembered the sweet little girl who used to hug her tightly, the child who once loved bedtime stories and followed her around the house. That soft child had vanished, replaced by someone sharp-tongued, impatient, bossy. "Good evening, Mommy," Amara would say while scrolling her phone, not even lifting her eyes. Sometimes she didn't greet at all. Her mother tried conversations, warnings, emotional appeals. "Amara, this life you are living, it is not good," she said once. Amara scoffed. "Mommy, please, nothing is wrong. You worry too much." That cut deeper than any insult. Mr. Dyke, usually calm and gentle, noticed how relatives whispered, how guests felt uncomfortable around Amara, how maids quit frequently, how church members avoided bringing their children to the house. One Sunday, after service, a woman pulled Mrs. Dyke aside and whispered, "Your daughter is beautiful, but her character, you need to watch it." Mrs. Dyke forced a smile, but inside her heart broke. That night she cried quietly so Amara wouldn't hear. But Amara felt invincible. She believed her parents' status protected her. She believed she would never face consequences. She believed the world would always bend, until the day she embarrassed a family friend over a simple issue about sitting space. "Why are you sitting there?" she snapped rudely. The woman froze in shock. Mr. Dyke stood up immediately. "Amara," he said sharply, but she rolled her eyes. "What? Apologize? For what?" That moment shattered something in him. After the visitor left, he called her into the sitting room. "Sit down," he said. She sat, irritated. Your behavior is a problem." She laughed. "Daddy, you're exaggerating." That laugh felt like a slap. Her mother covered her face, fighting tears. "You embarrass us everywhere," Mr. Dyke said, voice trembling. "Do you think money can hide who you are becoming?" Amara stood up angrily. "I'm tired of this talk." She stormed off and slammed her door. That night, after hours of heavy discussion, her parents made a difficult decision, one that left a thick silence in the room. Boarding school. Not just any boarding school. A strict one. A place known for discipline, order, and structure. A place parents used when they were afraid of losing their children to pride and carelessness. Mrs. Dyke was terrified. "She will hate us," she said. "Maybe," her husband replied, "but if we do nothing, we will lose her completely." The next morning, Amara woke up singing, clueless. She strolled downstairs, scrolling her phone, barely greeting anyone. "Mummy, what's for breakfast?" she asked casually. Her mother's hands shook as she served her. That evening they told her. "You'll be going to Okechi boarding house," Mr. Dyke said. Amara laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Very funny." "We're serious," her mother said softly. The laughter vanished. "Boarding school? Me? For what?" "For discipline," her father replied. "For structure." "I'm not going," she shouted. "I'm not like those village girls." That sentence sliced sharply through the room. Her father's face hardened. "Watch your words." "So this is about church people talking?" she yelled. "You care more about strangers than your own daughter." Her mother burst into tears. "We are trying to save you, Amara." "Save me from what? Comfort? A good life?" She stormed away, crying loudly. For days she refused to speak properly. She slammed doors, rolled her eyes, muttered insults under her breath. But preparations continued silently. Forms, payments, boxes packed. The school they chose was famous and feared. Okechi boarding house. And the name that echoed constantly was Madame Neckem, the woman in charge. Parents spoke of her with respect and a little fear. "She doesn't shout," one parent said, "but if she looks at you, you correct yourself." "She trains children," another added. "She breaks pride with calmness." Amara overheard and scoffed. "They can't change me." On the day of departure, she threw tantrums while packing. "Why so many clothes? Am I going to prison?" No one answered. When they arrived at Okechi boarding house, Amara stepped out and froze. The buildings were tall, plain, serious. Students walked in perfect lines. No noise, no bright colors, no laughter, just order. A strange fear crept into her chest. Her mother hugged her tightly. "Remember who you are," she whispered. Amara didn't hug back. "You'll regret this," she said coldly. Her father sighed. "One day you'll understand." And just like that, the gates closed behind her, shutting her comfortable world out. Madame Nankam met her with calm eyes, no smile, no anger, just a presence that made Amara stand straight. "Carry your box properly," she said. Amara struggled, expecting help. None came. They walked into the dormitory, a place so orderly it made Amara uneasy. Beds aligned perfectly, shoes neatly arranged, floors spotless. "This is your bed," Madame Inkem said, pointing to one near the door. "Why near the door?" Amara asked. "So you can learn to wake up fast," Madame Kem replied and walked away. That was the first moment Amara realized this place would not bend to her. And it was only the beginning. Amara grew louder as she grew older, and the more her parents tried to correct her, the more she became a mirror of everything they feared. They had given her comfort, thinking love was measured in convenience, but all they had really done was raise a girl who believed everyone else was created to orbit around her desires. One evening her mother asked her to help set the table for dinner just once, just to learn something simple. Amara stared at her as though she had spoken an unfamiliar language. Set the table? Me? What are the maids here for? Her mother's face tightened with disappointment, but she let it go, like she had let everything go. But the world has a way of correcting what parents tolerate, and Amara's correction started quietly, small moments of embarrassment here and there. At school, she insulted a girl for having an old backpack, not knowing the class was tired of her arrogance. When she laughed too loudly the next day, the teacher snapped and sent her out. When she mocked another student for wearing worn-out shoes, that student finally shouted back, "At least I can survive without servants." That sentence cut deeper than Amara expected. For the first time, she felt something unfamiliar, exposed. Still, she brushed it off. She believed she was untouchable, unshakable, beyond consequences. Until the incident that changed everything. It started on a quiet Wednesday morning. A maid named Chica accidentally spilled juice on Amara's white blouse. Before Chica could apologize, Amara slapped the glass out of her hand, the sound ringing like a gunshot on the marble floor. "Are you blind? What is wrong with you?" she screamed, and Chica froze, humiliation burning her face. Her mother stormed in just in time to see the same broken glass on the floor, juice everywhere, a maid shaking silently, and her daughter standing like a spoiled queen. Something snapped inside Mrs. Dyke. She didn't shout. She didn't scold. She simply said, "Amara, pack your bags." Amara blinked. "Pack my what?" Her father's voice came from behind her mother, firm and cold. "We have made a grave mistake raising you like this, and we will correct it before it destroys you." Panic shot through Amara's chest for the first time in her life. "Where are you sending me?" "Somewhere you will learn how life truly works," her father replied. "Somewhere comfort will no longer cover your flaws." That night she sulked, tried crying, threatened to run away, even promised to behave. But her parents had already chosen the path for her, a path she did not know would break her pride into dust. The next morning they drove her to Okechi boarding house, a place her mother described as discipline carved into walls. The moment Amara stepped out of the car, she felt the difference. No high gates, no polished tiles, no maids waiting. Students carried their own buckets of water. Girls washed their uniforms under the sun. A senior girl shouted instructions while others ran. Amara's heart thumped wildly. "Daddy, Mummy, I can't stay here," she whispered, gripping the car door. But her mother gently pried her fingers off. "You must." Her father handed her a small metal bucket and a rough blanket, the kind she had only seen in villages. She stared at them as though they were weapons. "Where are the workers? Who will wash my clothes? Who will clean my room?" Her father didn't answer. He simply walked away. Her mother followed, tears in her eyes. Amara watched the car move farther, farther, until it vanished completely. And for the first time in her pampered life, she felt truly, terrifyingly alone. Before she could gather herself, a woman with a sharp voice called out, "New girl, come here." This was Madame Ankem, head of the girls' hostel. She looked Amara up and down with a gaze that soared through the layers of entitlement. "Drop that attitude at the gate. It will not survive here." Amara wanted to protest, wanted to remind her who her parents were, but the woman had already turned around, expecting obedience. Amara followed her into the dormitory, a long hall of metal bunks, thin mattresses, and a smell of detergent mixed with sweat. Nothing about it was soft, nothing was convenient, and no one cared who she was. That first night she struggled to sleep. The fan barely worked. Mosquitoes hummed like tiny engines. A girl on the top bunk snored. Water dripped somewhere in the corner. Amara tossed and turned, furious that anyone expected her to live like this. She wanted to scream, "Do you know who I am?" But the room around her answered silently, "Here, you are nobody." The next morning, the bell rang at 4:30 a.m. Girls jumped out of bed immediately. Imara pulled her blanket over her head. A senior girl yanked it off. "You have 5 minutes to get outside with your bucket. Move." Imara was shocked. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She wanted to argue, insult, slap someone even, but the senior's cold stare warned her that consequences here were different. Outside, girls lined up to fetch water from a single tap. Amara stood apart, disgusted by the muddy ground and early morning chill. She waited for someone to notice she was special. No one did. When her turn finally came, the water splashed on her feet, and she grimaced as though acid touched her skin. Back in the dorm, she expected someone to help her prepare for school. Instead, Madame Kum approached her and said, "Your uniform is dirty. Wash it." Amara blinked. "Wash? Me? With my hands?" "With whose hands?" the woman asked, raising an eyebrow. Amara swallowed, her pride burning like hot charcoal in her throat. She walked to the washing area, knelt beside other girls, and placed her uniform in a basin. Her fingers shook. She did not know how to scrub. She did not know how to rinse. Soap got into her eyes. Her arms hurt. She kept glancing around, expecting laughter, but what she saw humbled her even more. Every girl there worked without complaint, some younger than her, some poorer than her, some with heavier loads, none acting like the world owed them anything. For the first time, a question formed inside Amara's mind. Was I the strange one all along? That thought made her chest tighten. She hated it. She hated the school, the bucket, the chores, the rules. She hated the version of herself that felt weak among strong people. She cried silently that night, clutching her thin pillow, too ashamed to let anyone see her tears. But humiliation was only the beginning, and life had more lessons waiting. As the days passed, the sharp edges of Amara's pride began to soften. She started to understand the rhythm of the hostel, waking early, washing her clothes, sweeping floors, learning to coexist with others without demanding attention. Slowly, the angry frown she wore like armor began to fade. She noticed something she had never paid attention to before: people. The girl who always smiled despite having only 2 uniforms. The junior student who shared her water even though she had little. The seniors who guided younger ones with tough love, not cruelty. And Madame Nkum, whose strictness hid a heart fiercely committed to shaping better humans. One afternoon, Amara watched a girl her age scrub her only pair of shoes until her knuckles reddened. Something moved in Amara's chest, a feeling she had not known before. Not pity, not guilt, but humility. That evening she quietly joined the others in sweeping the compound. No one forced her. No one shouted at her. She simply picked up a broom and worked. The girls stared for a moment surprised, but no one mocked her. In fact, one of them smiled and said, "Welcome." That single word changed something inside her. Weeks passed, then months. Amara no longer flinched when her hands touched cold water. She no longer snapped when things weren't perfect. She no longer looked down on anyone. In fact, she had begun helping others, teaching juniors how to fold their clothes, assisting seniors with chores, sharing the water she fetched, and even apologizing when she made mistakes. The girl who once believed the world should kneel for her was now learning the strength of kneeling to help another. When visiting day arrived, her parents walked into the compound expecting the same arrogant daughter they had sent away. But what they saw made them freeze. Amara was standing under a tree, helping 2 younger girls wash their clothes. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't complaining. She was laughing genuinely, freely, like someone who had discovered herself for the very first time. Her mother covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Her father felt the heaviness lift from his shoulders. Amara looked up and ran to them, hugging them tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know how blind I was." Her parents held her, overwhelmed, realizing that the world had taught their daughter what comfort never could. When they drove her home at the end of the term, she carried her own bag. She thanked the guards, she greeted the maids by name. And when she entered her room, that huge, spotless room she once treated like a throne, she felt something unexpected: gratitude. Her journey had not made her less, it had made her more aware, more grounded, more human. And that is how Amara, the girl once consumed by entitlement, learned that true strength doesn't come from being served. It comes from learning to serve others with humility, kindness, and grace.